Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in on this lovely Thursday morning. A little precursor before the show. First off, I want to say thank you to Sarry, Ibrahim, for coming on. That was a great conversation with a very professional guy who knows what he's doing and really cares about what he's doing. He has passion. I'm not going to tell you what he's doing because that's what the episode's for. But I hope you guys enjoy it. The only thing is, if you're used to listening to us on YouTube, you'll see there's no video this week because, as I've said in the past, Zoom isn't my preferred method of doing this. I use Zoom to record my video, but in terms of having the conversation and whatever else, it's ideal to do it in person. So, but that being said, Sarry lives in Chicago, and it was great to have him on. Don't get me wrong, it was great to have him on, but you'll notice there is that weird delay with the mics. You'll notice that when we're talking. But other than that, I just wanted to come on here to say that there is no video this week, but we do have our episode as promised. 2 guests in 1 week. You believe that? Do you believe that? We're throwing it back to the old days of the Smoking Simian. 2 guests in the week. Monday was kind of a little surprise thing. It was great to have Kevin on, but Thursday we got the guest, we got it done, and that's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. Again, sorry about no video, but we do what we got to do on the show. We still got a show for you, and that's it. Enjoy the show. Peace. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Today I have Mr. Sarry Ibrahim. I hope I said his name right. We had to clarify ahead of time. How are you, sir?
Hey, Antonio. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you do. I understand you're I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I understand you're a financial advisor. You have your own company at the moment, but you elaborate. You tell us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I run a company called Financial Asset Protection. It's a financial services firm. We're located in Chicago, Illinois, and we pretty much help and service clients in all 50 states. We do it all over Zoom or all over the phone. I've been in this business for about 5 years. And it's great. I love solving problems for people, getting to know people. It's more about the people side than it is about the business side, right? So I'm working with, for example, business owners, real estate investors, from all walks of life, from all ranges, from people who are just completely brand new to business to people who are in their 50s and have 100 properties, from a huge array of clients. And I love it. I love handling their cases and working with them and being a problem solver, more on the coaching side than really on the advising side.
Right. Now, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 31.
Okay. So what brought you to the financial planning kind of area? Because I'll tell you just a little bit about me before. Because I tried my hand at being an advisor at one point, and I realized for me it wasn't, it didn't pan out for me. But what brought you to that? Were you always kind of a business minded or a person who likes to solve problems, that type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Spot on. Yeah. So I've always been attracted to solving problems. I like the challenge. And I've always seen it's like, well, if that's the only problem, then for sure there's a solution. I believe that every problem has a solution. So that's kind of what drew me in. I've also been very passionate about money, but again, not so much about the actual money part of it, but the people behind it, how money is used to achieve things in life. And it's also, it's sometimes a huge problem for a lot of people. If you look at why, most businesses fail, why most relationships fail, why most, things that happen that go wrong in life usually are a lack of money or sometimes too much of it and not knowing what to do with it. So I've always been attracted to those kind of problems. And again, the challenges too. I enjoy taking on those challenges. That's why I got into financial planning. It was mostly from an insurance background. So I first got into insurance. I worked at Allstate Insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna HealthSpring and Humana. And I saw how these insurance companies were thinking. And a lot of that kind of insurance falls under the umbrella of financial services. So I got to see, it was really interesting to me. Like I enjoyed how insurance companies thought, how they always wanted new clients, but they were picky about their clients. how they have underwriters, because they want to manage risk. And I've kind of taken some of those principles and helped clients achieve those and understand them. And I actually started a show called Thinking Like a Bank. So that's the name of my show, Thinking Like a Bank. And we talk about these things. We talk about how to underwrite deals, how to evaluate risks, how to take necessary risks, but also how to mitigate and avoid unnecessary risks. We talk about project management and different things like that. So to kind of get into the mindset of the actual entrepreneur and how somebody thinks. And I think, Antonio, that most importantly, that entrepreneurship is the way you think about yourself and the world around you. That's the most important part of entrepreneurship.
Right. I had a gentleman on here who's been an advisor for years. He's been a planner for years and years. And it's funny that your show is called Think Like a Bank, because he speaks a lot about that. He's like, how come we don't act like banks? They have all these outlets to get passive income in. How come we don't do the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah.
So like, for example, yeah.
Oh, no, I think there's a little bit of a delay. So you go ahead.
All right. Okay. So I think, you're spot on. You're right. So banks, like for example, if a business owner has a line of credit, let's just say it's $100,000, and this business owner is good at managing his or her finances. So they're using the line of credit and then paying it back on time, paying the interest payments. And the bank says, hey, you're doing a really good job with this line of credit. We're going to increase it from 100,000 to 250,000. Now that business owner is automatically going to see that as a positive thing. That's a good thing. That's a sign of success, that you have the ability now to get access to more funding, which is hard to do as a business owner. But you're going to see this now as a positive thing. But when in reality, what that means is you've just increased the revenue for banks. You've just increased their money supply by having access to more money. Because let's say, for example, in scenario one, at $100,000, you were paying 5% interest. And then in scenario two, you were paying 5% interest at 250,000. The interest rate is the same, but the amount that you're borrowing grew. Therefore, the amount of interest that bank is going to make off you now grows too. So they're earning more passive income without having to really do anything but give you access to money. And the catch to thinking like a bank, or the twist to it, is that bank that's loaning you 100,000 in one scenario or 250,000 in another scenario, that's not their money. They're actually leveraging that money from other people. So they're like wholesaling that money and charging you interest. So they're buying it from one place at a certain interest rate and then selling it to you. That's just one way that banks operate, and that's clever. And a lot of people could actually do this on their own. And this is what we show people through our podcast and through our other content and our YouTube channel. We show people how they could become their own banker. And obviously, it's not just more of a way to capitalize, but it's also a way to mitigate against risks. Like, for example, market risks, taxes, inflation, other things like that. So that's what we show clients how to do, and why it's actually beneficial to think like a bank.
Right. Yeah, it's very unfortunate that there isn't more people don't know about a lot of these things we're kind of talking about. A lot of people don't understand how a bank works, how a bank can actually go bankrupt. That's one of the questions I hear all the time. How can a bank go bankrupt? They have all the money. Yeah. Like, it's just kind of a kind of a disconnect, And one thing that I'm from Rhode Island, and Rhode Island, if you look up, worst business states, is actually the worst one. It's right at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. But something that has changed is now in I want to say middle school to high school, there's been a legislation put in that financial literacy is a required course. And I feel like that's a big step, because so many people skip out on that because we don't learn it in school. And then it's like, oh, well, if you don't pick a business-minded major when you go to college or a higher education, then it's like you just kind of go through life not knowing.
Exactly, and I agree. I think it's a big advantage that they're now adding financial literacy to schools. I think it's more important than, music classes or art history. If that's your thing, that's fine, but I think to require students to take classes that are really not going to help them, I think that's an issue. And then vice versa, the solution to that would be to have students take, financial literacy classes about, how banks work, how insurance companies work, because these things are going to affect people. They're going to mostly affect people in their lives, even if people, become art majors or history majors or whatever they end up doing in life. I think the financial component, the financial part of their life is going to eventually take over, and it's going to be kind of like the biggest problem they have for a lot of people. So to kind of get that out of the way at a younger age, I think is smart on behalf of the schools.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a weird balance between, nobody, I don't want to say nobody, but most people don't want to be greedy. Like, greed is the thing that is usually associated with money. But there's also the idea that, hey, there's a lot of things that can't be done if you're in a situation of financial strife.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's Tony. I think it's important to differentiate between, being greedy and, wanting more out of life. I think those are distinctive things. Like, I think greedy is more of uncontrolled. It's more of, hey, you have 100,000, now you want 1,000,000, now you want 10 million, and it's uncontrollable. And I think that greed is also, it's bad, obviously, because you're willing to do whatever it takes to just feed your inner demon kind of thing, where you're just trying to fill in your own wants and needs. Whereas wanting more out of life doesn't always have to do with just you. It could be your business, your employees, your family, your colleagues, trying to bring more to the table efficiently. So I think it's important for people to differentiate that. And you bring up an interesting point, because I think a lot of people are worried about appearing to be greedy or worried about becoming greedy. So they kind of avoid a lot of money. They don't want a lot of money because they think that they're greedy because of that. And I think, again, it's important to differentiate that and make a distinction between the two. And of course, you have to have like proper actions in place. So that way, for example, like if somebody said, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million today, what would you do with it? Most people would actually fail at this. Most people wouldn't know what to do with $1 million. They would, do something crazy, like buy a huge house and buy a bunch of, cars and clothes, and then end up, in debt, or even they would end up in a worse situation. Actually, like 80% of people would end up like that. Like when you look at people who win the lottery, they end up, in a worse financial situation than when they started. Most, like about 80% of people. And the same thing with like professional athletes. A lot of professional athletes end up, in debt after their contracts are over, because they were never used to that amount of money, and they never really planned on having, that amount of money. So you have to have actions in place. I'm going to take X amount of dollars, put it invested here. I'm going to have X amount of dollars saved here. And then you need like self-discipline. You need a financial advisor, a financial planner, somebody who's on your side, not just selling you financial products, but on your side, coaching you and helping you and creating like obstacles between you and your money. You want those obstacles between you and your money, or else if your money is super accessible and you could tap it at any time, I think that's how people get into a lot of trouble.
Right. Yeah. It is definitely about putting it in the right places. I've always said that. I'm like, if I ever were to win the lottery, if luck were to ever be on my side that much, I don't even play the lottery, but if I were to ever win the lottery, the first thing I would do is contact somebody who knows what to do with this amount of money. Like, I'm a finance major. I love, reading about the markets and all that type of thing. I keep up on the news.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But when it comes to, managing $10 million or something, I don't know where to start. I have an idea, but it's like, let me get with a professional. Let me get with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Antonio, like for the audience who's listening, who's thinking like, all right, well, what would I do? What to do if you came across a large amount of money? I think the smart thing to do would be to first, consider your objectives first. Like, for example, like what is it that you want to accomplish? And then take your time with this. Like, put money aside, and then the objectives are whether you have the money or not. What do you want to accomplish out of life? What do you want to get out of life from your own perspective, not what you should do in life or where you should be at, but what do you want? And to kind of take your time with this and then dig a little bit deeper into this. Like, for example, like, let's say one of your goals in life to travel, to go to every country in the world. Well, why is that important? What's important to you about that? To kind of ask yourself these questions, and then no judgment too. You're identifying your objectives, your wants, your needs out of life, and they're unique to you. And then from there, you would want to find a bridge, like using financial products and tools and techniques to connect you to your objectives. And I think this is where a lot of people make a huge mistake, is they just have their money or whatever the situation they're in, and then they try connecting that with what other people do. Like, for example, they sit with a financial advisor, and the financial advisor is like, all right, you need to put this money in the stock market, because that's what you do when you have a lot of money, you put in the stock market. And then the clients get like, okay, yeah, I agree with you. This is what people do. And then you're just kind of following like blindly based off of other people's methods. And I think that's problematic. I think you want to identify first what you want to do, make it as unique as possible, make it as specific as possible, and take your time with this. This is the most important step. And then from there, figure out how you could bridge to your goals and your needs and wants, and through the help of coaches and professionals.
Right. That's an interesting point, because I never really thought about that. It's because a lot of the times it's like, okay, you get that big sum of money and people do what other people would do with it. They buy things, they put it in the stock market, they whatever, but it's not tailor made. Now, does a lot of the stuff I understand? Most advisors, they go case by case. It's not like you're a Fidelity manager who goes to a company and it does basically the same thing for everybody. I understand. Is that a lot of what you do? It's more like a case by case basis. What does this person want? What are their needs? What are they, disposable income, all that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. My job is before I can make any recommendations or provide any advice, I have to understand the client situation, where they're at, what's going on in their lives. I need to know their financial situation. Imagine if you went to a doctor, and as soon as you walk into the doctor's office, the doctor's like, hey, I have this prescription ready for you. Then you're like, I didn't even tell you what was wrong. It's the same kind of idea, it's the same logic, where like you need the professional to understand your specific situation, because it's going to be different. Everybody is going to have a different financial situation. So you need to have a professional that understands it, asks you about it, ask a lot more questions than you're asking questions. Actually, the advisor should be asking you more questions, getting to know your situation, and then making a specific recommendation to your needs and wants. Not just saying, okay, let's do the stock market, because that might not be feasible for everybody. And this is exactly what we do. We do a full, thorough 60 to 90-minute financial analysis. We understand the client's needs, wants, their objectives, where they're at right now in life, where they want to go to, where they want to get to. And then from there, we would build out a custom financial plan that'll help them get there. And then also too, one thing that kind of like makes us different is that we're not a lot of financial advisors. Most financial advisors typically work in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That's how they are compensated. That's how they're paid. They usually charge like 1% or 2% on the account they're managing, and that limits the amount of options that the client is going to do. So a lot of situations, financial advisors would help clients and say, all right, based on what we went over, let's do X amount of money in the stock market now, and then every month to allocate more. We don't actually work with the stock market at all. We work with more on the guaranteed safety side. It's more of safe, predictable savings options, and not so much of investing or investments or volatile investments. It's actually based off of a concept called the infinite banking concept. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the infinite banking concept. It's also known as like bank on yourself, the bank on yourself concept. That's what we help clients with. That's what we specialize in. And I can get into more of that if you'd like.
Yeah, no, definitely explain that. So you use products that aren't necessarily, when people think of the stock market, they're like, oh, this is a risk. This is a risk to invest, or even though there are, less risky options when it comes to the market. But it seems like you're talking about something completely different.
Yeah, correct. Something complete. It's not tied to the stock market. It's tied to insurance companies and the performance of insurance companies. And we only work with insurance companies who have been in business for over 100 years. So like I came across this like interesting fact the other day where it was like banks collectively have $190 billion in whole life insurance. Now, out of all places, like, that I think that draws a huge question is like, why do banks allocate so much money to whole life insurance, even more money than real estate properties and other places? The majority of their wealth is allocated or placed into whole life insurance. So like that got me to do research, like why whole life insurance, and discovered that the growth of it is tax deferred. The loans and withdrawals are usually tax free. It's not connected to the stock market. It's not tied to the stock market. It's guaranteed predictable growth, averaging 4 to 6% per year. Now, that's not a huge number, 4 to 6% per year, but that is kind of a big deal when you're talking about taxes and market risks. When you take out market risk and you take out taxes, that's a pretty significant number. And you have the ability, these banks have the ability to borrow, to leverage their whole life policies. So that means, one bank could put $1 billion into a whole life policy and then turn around the next week and borrow out 500 million if they wanted to, and then use that $500 million to loan out to other people, through credit cards, mortgages, lines of credit, business loans, whatever the case is. They loan that money out, and then now they're making money off their loan money to the customers and from the whole life insurance policy at the same time. So this connects back to thinking like a bank. This is exactly what we help clients with. We help them, save money in whole life insurance as opposed to other areas, and then use that money for whatever it is they want to use. They could use that for pretty much anything they want to use. That's kind of what infinite banking is, and Bank on Yourself. It's using whole life insurance for self-banking purposes, for cash growth, tax deferred growth, asset protection, and that's what we help clients with.
Right. I remember when I was learning in the firm that I was at for a little bit, the bottom rung of the pyramid was life insurance, and 4 to 6% is significant. I mean, it is. Yeah. You could have a bank account; it won't give you anything near that. It is. It makes a difference. And then as you go up, and the pieces get smaller and smaller, then there's room for speculation if you want to do some crazy, whatever options or whatever works for your risk tolerance. So I understand that life insurance is like it's like the first big step to creating wealth.
Absolutely. Creating wealth and keeping wealth. Because if you think about it, for example, like Jeff Bezos. Think about like the people who own Google and YouTube and all these mega huge corporations. Like, where are they storing their billions of dollars of cash? It's not, I guarantee you, they're not storing billions of dollars of their money in banks. Why would they do that? So why would Jeff Bezos, put $1 billion into a bank account, not earn any interest on it, have it exposed to lawsuits, have it exposed to inflation, lose the opportunity cost he could have earned had he invested it somewhere else? So that, the wealthiest people in this country use whole life insurance on a daily basis. They're funding it, borrowing against it, paying it back. They're becoming their own bankers using whole life insurance. And it really draws the question of like, if you are wealthy, where would your money live? It has to live somewhere. It can't live in a bank account. Having it sit in the stock market is too risky. Real estate is really good too, real estate. But what if there's a way where you could do real estate and whole life insurance at the same time? For example, I've worked on many clients with this. Like one case, this guy funded a whole life policy. He's a real estate investor. He funded it with $400,000 in cash. And then now he has the ability to borrow up to $375,000 from his policy. Now he's his own mortgage. He could, from the whole life policy, he could buy us. Let's just say, for example, he found a single family home that was $375,000. He could buy it cash as a cash buyer and then pay himself back as if he was his own mortgage now. So he's using two assets, with the same dollars. And then you could even get more, trickier, technical, where he has rental income now. He has rental income from that property. He's paying down the loan. and he has two assets growing at the same time. People use all types of there are all types of stories like this to show how you could use whole life insurance alongside other investments and to have it to keep more wealth over time. It's protected from the stock market, protected from taxes, protected from inflation, protected from creditors and lawsuits and judgments. There's so many different benefits, but I think it all starts with your objectives. What do you want to accomplish out of life? What is it that you specifically want? And if whole life insurance can help you get there, it's a tool, not just so much of a title, but more so of a tool. If that tool can help you get there, I think it's worth pursuing and investigating and researching and looking into it.
Right. And I think it's almost sort of a cheat code. I use that term often when you kind of unlock something.
Yeah.
It's sort of a cheat code when you realize that money is a tool, when you use it as a tool.
Yes.
When you go ahead, and it's not just this thing that we've, put a value on. It's not this thing that we just kind of look at and it's like we work for it, we get it, we save, we spend it. Like there's other ways. There's other ways to live. There's other ways to use that money.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. It's used as a tool. And it should always be used as a tool. Eventually, the goal is to have money work for you and not to work for money. That obviously that's usually later on. But yeah, through passive income, through passive growth, where your money is literally working for you, and it's not the other way around. You're not a slave to money; money is a slave to you.
Right.
That's kind of the ultimate goal of, and in my opinion, reaching financial success is when you can make money and earn money without really having to work. It's possible. It takes time, and it takes self-discipline. It takes a coach, a planner on your side. It's obviously a dream for a lot of people but it's possible if you have the right systems in place.
Right. Yeah. That's the one of the things I was speaking about with my guest on Monday. We were talking about the idea of in the U.S. specifically, there's a big stress on the idea of working. Like you got to work overtime, all this stuff. And it makes sense in the short term. You got to grind. You're a kid. You're young. You want to get as much money as you can to eventually put it somewhere. But to work until you're, 68, it gets older. The older we get, the older the retirement age gets. To me, that's an absolute nightmare. To work till I'm 68 and then maybe live another 10 years off. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, that's so scary in my mind.
Yeah, you're so right, man. Yeah, exactly. Like people are programmed that way where it's like, if I need to work, if I need money, I have to work. And if I want more money, then I have to work more hours.
Right.
And there's really no other way around that. And yeah, you're right. In the short term, it's beneficial, but long term, not really, because there's only 168 hours in a week. You still need time to sleep, time to spend with your family and friends, time for your health, taking care of yourself, your health, going to the gym, eating, all those other things, and then you have time for work. So to maximize work hours, you're taken away from those other things that you have to do, like sleeping, friends, family, social life, your health, all those other things. Because again, time is limited. There's every human in the world only has 168 hours in the week for everything to do. And then when you add or take away in different areas of your life, you're literally adding or subtracting in different areas of your life. But with money is infinite. There's enough money in the world for every person to be a billionaire. The money supply can keep growing over time. You can keep making more money. You could duplicate it. You could quadruple it. There's no max to money. So, I would think that time is far more important than money is, because you can't take it back. You can't borrow it from somebody else. You can't add more to it. You only have the same time. But money is something that you could duplicate and grow over time. And that should be the focus of it, is how do I save more time? How do I work smarter, not harder? And how do I, the time, the energy that I'm putting in today into work, how do I bring this with me into the future passively? how do I take all the effort I'm doing today and then carry that forward into the future? Because think about it this way. Let's say, for example, you have a job, you make whatever, let's just say $30 an hour, you work all these crazy hours, and then the day you stop, you get nothing from that, no passive income, nothing really you can carry into the future. Then it wasn't really that, it wasn't really that wise, or I guess not really that beneficial to you. But you want to figure out a way where how do I take this work right now that I'm doing and this money that I'm making right now and then bring that into the future with me?
Right. There's a book that I started and have been putting off to get back into, but it's, you may have heard of it. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week. Have you heard of that book?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah. So there's something I got just from reading the first couple chapters of it. There's this idea of the old rich and the new rich, and the old rich was measured specifically by the dollar. However much money you make, you're richer than the next guy. You make $1 million, this guy makes $500,000, you're richer than him. Yeah. Now, what if this guy who makes $500,000 works far less than the guy who's making $1 million? The guy that makes $1 million's got to work 80 hours a week. The guy that makes $500,000 works 20. Who's richer? The guy who's got more time, in my opinion.
Of course, 100%, I agree.
Yeah. And that was kind of a thing that definitely shifted my mind. It's one of those things you read and you're like, or you see it and it like clicks and you're like, wow, that's legit. You don't need to be, this filthy rich guy to have a good time in life. They even talk about the idea of having a career that is you can work from anywhere. The term is slipping my mind, but a remote working. And even that freedom of location is something that we take for granted because a lot of us are chained to a building or a work site or something. So the idea of having time and money is kind of redefining what it means to be rich or to be well off.
Yeah, Antonio, man, you're so right. I forgot who it was. It was this guy who was becoming wealthy, and he said that he was making like $30,000 a month, and he was working a lot of hours, like talking to people, and he had to, for every dollar he made, he had to work directly to earn that money. So he was young, he was making like $30,000 a month, and then he wrote a book. And then I think this is before like we were this tech savvy, before Amazon, before a lot of social media stuff, before e-commerce. So he wrote a book and then he had a website, and the website was like, mail your check, here to this address. And then I'll mail you the book that I wrote. And then he went to his mailbox and he got a check for $15, for the book. And then he's like, that was the wealthiest I've ever felt in my life, going to the mailbox and getting a check for $15 because he's like, first of all, what could this lead to? This could lead to $1 billion coming in the mailbox. And second, it's because he didn't have to directly work for that money. There was a postal service that connected him. There was a bank that transferred the money. There was a website that did the advertising for him. There was his book that, that the client was attracted to. So it was all these intangible things that did all the work for him. And that's how he felt like that's what really launched his wealth. And that's what made him really feel wealthy, was the fact that it was the passive growth, not the direct working for money.
Right. And I think a lot of people there's like a stigma behind it, because if you adopt the idea to not work for your money at a young age, people will say, oh, this kid's allergic to work. He doesn't want to work. He's lazy, this and whatever. But it's kind it's just sort of a closed-mindedness, if we're being honest. It's like, you couldn't do it. I'm trying to do it. If it doesn't work, we'll figure something else out. But, at the end of the day, you can't hate on somebody for trying. And wanting a different...
exactly. Yeah.
Wanting a different, a different way of life. That I grew up middle class, around blue-collar people who work. They get up and they work. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something else.
Yeah. You're so right. Exactly. Yeah. People think that, first of all, that's like there's something wrong with you. Like, that the fact that you only want to work remote, that you only want to work a limited amount of hours, and that you want to make a lot of money doing so. People think that you're like delusional. You're not like all there, you have to get up, you have to drive, 45 minutes to a job. You have to be there for, 50 hours a week. That's what you do in life. But I think I like how you said, like, there, you don't have to limit yourself to that, especially in the year 2021, with e-commerce, social media, podcasts, all these different things. You can make a living based off of what you like. You see it all the time. You see all these people, who, I forgot who I was watching, this guy on YouTube, and he was like, he used to work as a finance manager, and then he quit that and became, he makes cooking videos, and he probably does really well doing that. In other words, anything is possible. You have to believe that anything is possible. Your mindset has to be there. You have to believe it's true, and then you can't have paradigms or belief systems get into your way. And this comes from the word should, right? When we say, like, you should work, you should have a job, you should do X, Y, and Z. You should be, these are all based off of belief systems, other people's belief systems or your belief systems. And you want to believe in yourself, believe in what you want to accomplish in your life, believe what's real, what's actually possible. And more important than that, it's what you're capable of doing. If you're capable of doing anything that you set your mind to. You actually get whatever you think about in life. So if you're thinking about making passive income, you're thinking about being self-employed, you're thinking about all these things, you're believing in it, you'll end up getting those things in life. You end up attracting those things in life, and you end up attracting the right people, the right connections. And then vice versa. If you don't think it's possible, then you won't reach those things.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's definitely about the risk tolerance of the person wanting to do it, or not wanting to do it. And, of course, the belief. Now, I know you got to get out of here soon. We got about 15 minutes left. I wanted to ask you, so you did the insurance thing for a little bit. You worked for some big companies. When you realized that it was something for you, did you immediately go right into starting your own business? Or was there some kind of intermediate thing that we hadn't spoken about yet?
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. When I saw that this could really be an unlimited potential, like for example, I was working at Allstate, and I had to, I was going on vacation, but before I went on vacation, I had to access my computer and check something. And I did it like while I was on the road. And then there was that one time. And then there was a second time where I was sitting at home and I was helping my friend with renter's insurance for his apartment. And it was nothing big. It was like $15 a month. And I was helping him do it over the phone at night. I was, the day before I had to go to work. And I was like, those two times, I was like, wait a minute, I just did this completely remotely, virtually. And it doesn't have to just stay right here with this type of insurance. It can go to essentially any type of insurance, financial consulting, financial planning, all types of insurance. Everything could be done over the phone, through a computer, helping people. And then that's all I really needed. It's kind of like that story I just said about the guy who, sold a book and got $15 in the mail. It wasn't like, that big of a deal to get a check for $15 in the mail, but it's what it could lead to. And the same thing, what happened with me was like, where can this go? That's what really gave me the green light to say, all right, let's do it all the way, self-employed as far as you can go.
Right. Now, I'm sure you help all different demographics of people, but a lot of young people listen to this show. I'm only 24. So a lot of young people listen to this show, and they hear some of these things and they're like, slow down. I don't know if I could do anything with an advisor. Yeah. I don't know if there's, can any of this stuff even help me at all? Do you actually do you speak to, or maybe I should say, do you work with younger people? Is this something that's accessible? I know the answer, but is this something that's accessible to younger people?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. This is something that it's at all ages, even if you're in college, all ages, this will help them. And another thing too, is that you don't have to. So a lot of people think that in order to talk to a financial advisor or financial planner, you have to pay first. Like you have to, invest or pay first, and then you can get the advice and the recommendations. And that's not true at all. Typically, when we work with clients, we have a 15-minute intro call. It's a free 15-minute intro call. It's us just getting to know them. We could do it over the phone or over Zoom, and to see if we're heading in the right direction, if we're a good fit. And then the second call is a financial analysis. Again, it could be over Zoom or over the phone. And this is us just asking financial questions, objectives. For example, one of the questions on there is, what are some of what's a 10-year goal for you, and why is that important to you? Another question is, what does the word retirement mean to you? What are some things that frustrates you right now financially? So we're identifying these things, getting to another client, and that's also free. And the third step is we propose a solution. We show the solution that will help people reach their objectives or eliminate or mitigate a problem they're having or reach an opportunity. So we help show them how that can be connected to it, bridge to it. That's also free to get the solution. The fourth step, to implement the solution, to see if you can qualify for that solution and to proceed with it, that's also free too. And then the fifth step is you're approved, and then you could start funding the solution. Then you would pay, but that could be 6 months later, and you've got all this free advice, free training, free coaching, all access to all these things, all for free until it's time to fund the policy after it's approved. And we've seen a lot of people just going through the process, just going through the free process will already change their lives. They'll come across these questions where it's like, nobody's ever asked me that question before. I never even thought about that. For example, I had one client who has we were going through her debt, and she had so much debt, 6 or 7 credit cards, mortgage, all types of debt. And then, one problem wasn't the debt itself. It was identifying how much each one was, the interest rate behind it, the monthly payments, the clarity behind it. That was the main problem she had. So the solution we did was for free for her. We built out a financial tracker for her where it's like every day she would log into it and then put in how much her credit card debt was for each debt column, and then how much her assets were. And then this way it gave her clarity. And that was able, and this is actually something I use myself, a financial tracker I use myself. And then I was able to, in my situation, I was able to dramatically reduce debt because I envisioned it and I saw it every single day closely up front. So this is an example that clients can get these tools and techniques and these methods for free even before it's time to fund a solution.
Right. Now, I'm real happy that you cleared all that up, because it goes to show that there are good people in the business world, the finance world, these type of things, because there's a stigma that, all these people that try to solicit things and whatever else. And yes, there's bad people. There's people who try to take advantage of you. There's people in this, in the finance world that will do that. But for the most part, most people are good-hearted. And it's great that, that you were able to come on and kind of clear that up, because you basically laid out your whole plan, and there was nothing that had a dollar sign attached to it until the very, very end of actually executing the stuff that you helped us get to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. And then, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, earlier we were talking about, you brought up the analogy of having a doctor. You go to a doctor, hey, I got to get diagnosed. You're not just going to give me medicine. I'm happy you use that, because one of the guys that trained me back in the day he said the same thing. He's like, we're money doctors. We're not just going to give you a cookie cutter thing and that's it. We're here to figure out your situation and mitigate whatever problems you have.
Exactly. And that's a tip for the audience. Like, if you're wondering if somebody has your best interest at heart, and I think in all situations in life, not just with this, but if you're wondering if somebody has your best interest in mind and at heart, did they ask you questions? Did they ask you thorough, detailed questions that actually matter before they gave a recommendation or before they gave advice? I think that could be applied in a lot of situations. You mentioned the doctor situation, the lawyer. If you want to hire a lawyer, did the lawyer ask you thorough questions to make sure that you're qualified, or did they just say, hey, here's how you this is how you pay me? Same with an accountant. a good accountant asks thorough questions. People have different situations. They don't just assume that every person, every human has the exact same needs and wants. Like everybody wants to save on taxes. That's not necessarily true. What if your goal is to buy a home and then you need to show higher income? This is where a good accountant comes in. They ask questions. So always work with an advisor or professional who's going to ask you thorough questions, clear questions that matter to your specific situation.
Right. And it's also about finding someone who's passionate about it and has a connection with their work. There's a difference between someone like you who really loves what they're doing and helping people out to the guy who works for some company and telemarkets all day. It's a job, whatever. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who gets affected or anything. So it is it's a big piece picking the right person too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right, man. Yeah, exactly. You want somebody, it has to be a relationship. It has to be like you're involved closely with this person. Again, you're not some call center employee, across the country who's just sitting behind a desk with a headset on, talking to 1,000 people a day. There has to be a close relationship, somebody who's going to, like you said, passionate and who's going to take the time to listen to you and who's responsible for what they recommend to you. So if they recommend something to you and it's not a good situation, they need to be transparent with you. They need to figure out a solution to pivot. No solution out there is going to be perfect, but you can work with people who are transparent, who are logical, who reason properly, who communicate well with you. So this way, when they do come across a problem, they tell you what it is up front. They give you the solutions, not just hide it and then hope that you either never find out, or when you do find out, that it doesn't matter. The professional should be held liable. And in most situations, they are. A doctor is responsible for whatever they prescribe to you. A lawyer is responsible for the recommendations. An accountant, a financial planner. These people have liabilities and responsibilities, and you want that. The client, you want those liabilities on behalf of the professional because it holds them accountable.
Right. Accountability is huge, especially when you're working with somebody who's, working with your money or your life or any of those things.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Sarry, this was a really good conversation. I think people are going to get a lot out of this. How often do you do your show, and when does it typically come on?
So it's a weekly show. It launches every Wednesday. We have 16 episodes up so far. Episode 17 should be up tomorrow, Wednesday. You can find, it's called Thinking Like a Bank. You can find it on our website. Our website is finassetprotection.com. It's finassetprotection.com. There's a link to the podcast there. It's on all the major podcast platforms. It's on YouTube. And then, you can link through everything from finassetprotection.com. And if listeners want, I can give them a free book written by somebody who invented the concept we talked about, Becoming Your Own Banker. The book is called Becoming Your Own Banker. I can send them a free copy of that book if they go to finassetprotection.com.
Right. And people can contact you personally there as well?
Yeah. There's a link to my email, a calendar link. They can schedule an appointment. There's a link to my LinkedIn, a link to my YouTube channel. So whatever way they want to go to, I think the base is go to finassetprotection.com. Then from there, you can schedule however you want or connect with me however you want. And if you want the free book, just go to the website, connect with me, and then send me like an email or a message on LinkedIn requesting the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and I'll send it to you for free via email.
There you go, people. Free stuff. Can't go wrong with free stuff. Sarry, thank you very much again. If you ever, for whatever reason, find yourself in Rhode Island, we can do this in person. It'd be great. I'm not sure how often you're over here, but
that'd be awesome. Yeah, and I've never been there, but I'd like to go.
Yeah, it's great. It's not so great today. It's been rainy, but great beaches, great everything. I'm not here to be your travel guide, but if you're ever in the area, we can figure something out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow, you hit the links in the description. You follow me, and head over to my website if you need some 16-ounce boxing gloves. That's it, everybody. Thank you. Peace.
Thanks, Antonio.